Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we are joined by Greg Arendt, and he is the CEO of the Gatesway Foundation. And they are doing incredible work out in Oklahoma, and they are empowering adults with intellectual development disabilities, one through providing safe housing, employment opportunities, and just overall support and services. Greg, thanks again for joining, and tell me a little more about the work that you're doing. And I know y'all just had a big win.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, Grayson, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, we are on a mission at Gatesway Foundation. We have been for the last couple of 3 years. And that mission, that vision is something that we believe passionately that every adult with intellectual disabilities deserves to have housing and care, dignified housing and care. And so we want to set the new standard of housing for this amazing population that has taught me so much about life and meaning of life. And so, yeah, we were, as I was telling you a little bit earlier, we were in any type of large capital development project that you have when you're developing land, you end up with surprises from time to time, like missing a detention pond that was supposed to be there and sewer lines that weren't in the places where they were supposed to be at. We had about $870,000 worth of surprises, and members of the team identified a grant at somewhat two weeks to go. And lo and behold, we were just awarded $870,000 of grant money that covers those two particular overages that we had. So as I like to say, God is great, and so that's give him all the glory for that.
Well, congrats on that. And tell me a little bit more about the project that you're working on. What are y'all hoping to achieve with that? And how is that going to be meeting the needs of your constituents?
Yeah. So Gatesway Foundation delivers services throughout Northeast Oklahoma, but we also included in Northeast Oklahoma is a plot of land that we've owned for quite some time. It's about 41 and a half acres of land, majority of which had really not been developed. And as I began to look, kind of began to paint a vision for what we wanted for the population that we serve, was we really wanted a fully integrated community
Mm.
outcome. So in other words, we absolutely believe in neurotypicals living side by side, neurodiverse. That's how everybody wins. That's how everybody grows. And so at the end state, currently we have about 60 residents on that particular campus. We have painted a vision for and we're probably 2/3 of the way done with funding on as in we funded all of the projects, but 2/3 of the projects we've actually are in some form of starting. We will end up having over 300 units of affordable, highly 100% integrated housing between neurotypical, neurodiverse by the time we're done. In about 3 years, we'll be done with that. Uh,
That's incredible.
yeah, it's, and then in addition to that, we have adjoining and adjacent to that, we will have a community center that again is for use for both neurotypicals, neurodiverse, just a community. And then we also have a significant gymnasium as well that we're in the process of finding funding for renovation for that as well. So we're pretty good about I think we have a really good idea of what that vision looks like, what the campus looks like in 3 years. It will be renamed instead of the Gatesway campus. It's now already being called the Villages of Rose Hill. And so think about your classic housing development where there's different types of housing scattered throughout an acreage of that size. And the objective is by the time that we're done, every single one of the assets that is constructed will be in one sense or more paid for through grant funding and or donor advised funding.
Well, and I know that that housing component is massive for the mission and values of your organization. Tell me a little bit
Yes.
more about the employment piece of the puzzle that I know is another one of your core pillars.
Yeah, employment is a real important and frankly often challenging opportunity, and that's the way I would look at it. It's an opportunity to crack the code in what has been traditional employment opportunities. We at Gatesway believe in fully integrated community employment. That probably is not a shocker to you, Grayson, given how passionate I am about integrated living. So what our focus has been on is really identifying opportunities to employ what we refer to at Gatesway instead of clients, which we think is way too clinical. We refer to them as our friends. And so we want our friends to be in employment positions, but also in what I would just say an overall life fulfillment of life type of situation. So those who can work and we want them working in areas that are side by side neurotypicals, but in areas that they enjoy, right? And there are things that they're capable of doing and want to do. And then those that are not, for whatever reason, may not be able to hold a job, might not be able to do that. We are in the throes of launching what we're calling the enrichment program. So that is very much an individualized enrichment program, which I'd be glad to share more about why we're doing that and the approach behind that as well. So.
That's amazing. I would love to quickly just dive into for our audience. If you had to describe the benefits of that integration mindset,
Mhm.
is there a benefit in terms of reducing stigma in the community surrounding it? What are the benefits that you see both for the constituents that you directly serve and the broad community overall?
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating actually to watch and to witness this in real life in real time. So one of them is the stigma, for sure. Oh, that person's different, and I have lots of gray hair now, and so I know what it was like whenever I was growing up, and I look back in the past, and I'm like, people were just different, right? And sometimes a lot of times this population was often bullied, and still have been. We have situations where not kidding, the young people that are maybe in their 20s that come to Gatesway, they might actually have some PTSD over school. So if you even think about
Mm,
school, it takes them back to a time when it wasn't necessarily, you weren't the cool kid, right? And so that was all of a sudden the mentality. And so what we see is we see the opportunity to break that barrier. And so the
mm,
more opportunities that we see and have where our neurotypicals, where our IDD individuals are living, working, volunteering is another great way to get that experience. All of a sudden, people that are, if you're around somebody and you're a little bit different, and all of a sudden they're like, well, different's a beautiful thing. Difference a really beautiful thing. And so they begin to think, well, they've got the pure. I mean, I will tell you this group, my experiences, and they have the purest hearts of any people on the planet. I just think they just when you walk up, they want to give you a big hug. They want to. Their smiles are huge. They just so happy. And I don't know about you, but I like being around people that are happy, and it makes me feel good to be around that kind of population. I'll tell you a fun, just real quick story. Yesterday, we frequently have guests on the Gatesway property, and whether they're dignitaries of some sort. This particular one had to be a councilwoman from Tulsa, and our chief marketing and communication officer was with me on the tour, and one of the friends was so excited to see Christina is our communications officer. So excited to Christina. I thought the girl was going to be tackled because she was so happy to see her. But it's just about knocked her down. And so it's really pretty fun to watch that type of environment. And then you realize, you know, they're really not that different. At the end of the day, we all want to contribute. We all want to be loved. We all want to be in a safe place. We all want these things, right? We want people that's what we want. And they're no different. And then
mm.
you just kind of realize, um, how special they can really contribute to people's lives. It's a real blessing for me.
That's incredible, and that's a great story. It also makes me think about, especially as we talked about the community buy-in aspect of that.
Hmm.
What about making it to where it's that inclusive mindset has allowed you to kind of access these funds, really get that capital development going and getting and the donor buy-in? And also, are you seeing similarities in terms of bringing people and sharing that story with the other members of your community in terms of increasing the awareness and getting kind of that donor buy?
Yeah, great question, and has been probably the biggest surprise. I don't know if it's the biggest surprise. I mean, lots of surprises. I mean, and in the form of blessings, surprises is what I mean by that. So in the very beginning, it was a difficult slog, in the very, very beginning whenever I first got involved with this. But then we began to look at, okay, what could the art of the possible look like? What is the
Mhm.
possibility? What does that look like? And I think that once we cast the vision and we really got behind and making it clear and very articulate about what it was that we were doing. And I'll say one other thing, great coaching from some people that I'd never met before in the funding community here in Tulsa in particular. One man who is just an amazing, and we call him an angel donor, but was very, I was not I did not spend my life in the nonprofit world. That is not where I came from, as you know. And so, but what I've learned is accountability, communication, and transparency, and on a consistent basis really matters. It really
Mm.
counts. And so I'll never forget having a conversation with this gentleman, and he said, I've participated in several capital campaigns in the past, but once the original groundbreaking takes place, I usually never hear anything. And I'm like, no kidding. And to me, what he was doing was he may not intended to be doing this, but he was coaching me in this new world that you need
Yeah.
to be sure that you are doing these things so that you can report out, here's what it looks like. And then you do it consistently. And that is one of the things we have done very much with Gatesway. I mean, just consistently communicating out, here's what's happening. And then what is the impact to the lives, right? The end of the day, the bricks and mortar, they're going to be pretty, right? They're going to be pretty. They're going to be really nice. Lots of people like that. The main reason we're doing this is everybody gets their own bedroom. Everybody gets their own bathroom. They get a quality of life, and the impact that that's having on the friends is amazing. And then frankly, the caregivers who are give like if you're a caregiver and you're walking into a dilapidated space to go give care, it's probably not nearly as fun to be in that space as it is if you're walking into something beautiful, right? To see that. And so, yeah, I was, they were out installing cabinets this week. So it was pretty fun to go see that. They were out there putting the cabinets in the big center islands in. So that was kind of fun.
Those words that you mentioned, the accountability, communication, transparency, the word that comes to my mind when you say those is trust. And
Yes.
building that trust in your donor base and that constant communication is keeping them engaged. How
Yes.
has that been? Have you seen a more engaged donor base since you've
Oh,
kind of really been
100%.
implementing those ideas?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And we don't, we do it in a way that is thoughtful, right? We try to do our best in just communicating the excitement of what's happening and come join us. That's the approach. Come join us. We're doing something. We want to set a standard here. And I'll admit I'm a competitive guy. And so but I'm competing for a population that I believe really deserves that. The fun part, by the way, talking about bringing community along with you in your donor base. So yes. And so in addition to the first set of housing that will be very much specifically to get the quality of housing standard up for the people that currently live on campus. The second part of it is we worked very closely with the city of Broken Arrow a developer named Beacon out of Kentucky, and we have secured an approval for a 180 unit affordable housing apartment complex. That doesn't happen without full community involvement. And so the one of the most fascinating and exciting things that I ever got to experience in this process was, when you're doing a development project and you're doing affordable housing apartments, sometimes the neighbors don't like it, right? They don't like change. I get it. Change is
Bring it
hard.
down to home values. How dare
Yeah,
you?
well, how do I? And as we call that, the not in my backyard, the NIMBYisms, that take place. And so I love to tell this story because it was really impactful to many of us. That is, we were at one of several of the town council meetings at the city of Broken Arrow as this apartment project was going through the process. The room was packed. It was packed full of neighbors. It was packed full of other people, but a significant number of the NIMBYs that were there. And they all had really great things to say about Gatesway. So all positive. The neighbors that have been there are neighbors for a long time, right? We engaged them we hosted them over to say, come, let's share what we're doing and then give us your thoughts, which, was, I get it. Again, it was not something they were excited about having, 180 unit apartment complex. I get it from their perspective. But at the end of the day, we own this property and we are in a severe affordable housing shortage, not only in this state, but across the country. It is nation. And so what I witnessed was the neighbors said their piece. They were positive about Gatesway. It's just they wanted us to build something else. And the next thing I know, 1, 2, 3, 4 of our friends, Gatesway friends, gets up in a what you consider to be an intense town council meeting. They get up, they are articulate as they can be, and they just self advocate for themselves and say, hey, this is where I live too. Don't forget, this is my house too. And they nailed it. I mean, they just nailed it. I just sat back and watched, and I was like, so motion passes 5-0, no problem. And I marvel at that because I would have never had experienced that had I not gotten involved with this project. And that was powerful for me. That was really powerful. That's what self-advocacy is all about to me. Is like, go, just this, by the way, we the we when it came back to some of the COVID money that was available, Tulsa County money, we went after that really, really hard because we knew we needed to secure that financing. And once again, people will think what they might about what the IDD people can and can't do. I don't put anything past their capabilities anymore. I mean, I just watched. They're just fine articulating, you know. So anyway, I just love telling that story because it was really fun for me to watch.
I love that. Well, as we're reaching an end here for our nonprofit audience that's listening in, what would be a piece of advice from your time stepping in as CEO of this amazing organization that you would want to convey to them as they look to run theirs?
Yeah, I think the probably overarching thing. I stepped into Gatesway after being on the board for a short period of time, and then Gatesway was really it was a dark time. The funding was really, really tight, and my overall thing that I say is that, and I'm a business guy at heart. I mean, had this phenomenal career, but number one is a nonprofit is a tax status. It is not a sustainable business model, and so if you really want to have a sustainable business model, you need to look at your funding sources. You need to look at make sure that you're not overly um, exposed, for lack of better words, in terms of revenue
Reliance.
sources. Over reliant on singular revenue sources. This is a big to do of why we're redeveloping, why we're developing the land so that we can create alternative, as in rental income type of passive income into
Sustainable income.
sustainable income that is not dependent at the whims of the government. And I highly, highly, highly encourage nonprofits to really look at that, think strategic about that. And I'd say the other thing that Gatesway was doing at the time was they did not stay, they had mission creep. And so one of the first things I did was I pulled back and got us back to get us out of things. It's almost as much what you're not doing as what you are doing, so stop doing things that aren't in alignment with what you should be doing. And then probably the last thing I would say, Grayson, is the power of really understanding metrics and financial operations at a very granular level. Again, I'm blessed with that background, so it was very helpful to have that.
Yeah.
But all of those things get back to what you're talking about before, trust. And donors trust you if you can show them the journey and you can show them transparently and consistently. It's trust.
I love that. Well, Greg, thank you for coming on and sharing more about the wins that you have going on at the Gatesway Foundation. That's incredibly exciting, and I hope that you're able to continue to support the needs that you're seeing for your community and the overall community out there in Oklahoma. And thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for being here. Thank you. Bye bye.